Shields up, Ironbreakers. Burkan here coming at you with another video. Welcome back to Monster Hunter World Iceborne, and today we're going to be talking about the new content now that I finally had a chance to actually play it. So last night we did 6 hours of live stream. It was a fantastic time, had a ton of fun. That live stream is on the channel if you guys are curious as to how I spent my time, the things that I did first and all of that. It was just a real blast, and I have to apologize because earlier today I scheduled a live stream. A lot of you guys showed up to watch that live stream, and I wasn't actually able to do that live stream, and that was because the live streaming backend of YouTube was quite simply not working. I think it has to do with the implementation of the new dashboard or something, because I couldn't get my stream to start with the old dashboard or with the new dashboard. It was quite simply not working at all, and there wasn't really any way that I could have live streamed. Now, I did end up doing the live stream over on Twitch, which, by the way, if you guys don't follow me on there, it is twitch.tv/Rurikon. You really should give me a follow on there because sometimes I do live stream there. This doesn't mean that I'm not going to stream on YouTube. I stream on both platforms, and I will be streaming on YouTube as well. The problem was, it's just like the backend wasn't working, and there really wasn't anything that I could have done. Now, getting onto the content itself, it is important to mention, I'm going to be talking about the new monsters, so if you've been keeping yourself spoiler-free up until this point, you might want to head out of the video now. 3, 2, 1. That was your spoiler warning. Now, let's get started. Stygian Zinogre. Like I had mentioned before, he's pretty much kind of like a Zinogre on steroids. He's got a couple of new moves, but he's pretty much doable. I don't think he's super hard. I don't think you're going to need like a super special strategy to deal with him. Most of his moves, you'll be able to tell what they are like after you fought him a couple of times. And I didn't find him like super challenging or, you know, something that you need to be specifically prepared with. If you want to bring Resistor to kind of like prevent your elements from getting taken away because he does do Dragon Blight, that's something that you might consider if you're heavily dependent on elements. But if you are mostly dealing raw damage, you don't even have to worry about that. Again, Dragon Blight is like one of the biggest things because it's going to nerf some people's damage if you're going heavy on elements. Also, he is 3 times weak to Thunder, but only when he is charged up. When he is not charged up, he's only 1 star weak to Thunder, which probably means that most people are going to end up bringing like raw damage to him. He's also very weak to Blast, so, you know, there's that. You can also bring Blast to him. He's going to get a lot of explosions going, all that stuff, but overall, he's not super hard or super challenging, so I think most players should be able to tackle him without really needing like a specific build or anything like that. His new armor is decent, but most of it does rely on latent power. He uses the latent power secret skill, so naturally, you're going to see a lot of latent power in his armor, so most of those pieces I personally don't intend on using. However, the gloves and legs are pretty good because the gloves come with 2-piece Part Breaker. Part Breaker happens to be a skill that I personally enjoy using on some of my sets, as well as to focus on the legs, which is also a skill that I tend to use on a lot of my sets. So, you know, although the legs is whatever because it doesn't have really amazing sockets, but, you know, those are 2 of the pieces that I would consider using. Now, in terms of the Stygian Zinogre weapons, they have decent raw. It's not going to be the highest raw of all. That is still Rajang. For most trees, with the exception, naturally, of the Gunlands for reasons. But, yeah, Rajang still has the highest raw. Nergigante and Gold Rathian are still higher raw than Stygian Zinogre. But what Stygian Zinogre brings into the table is the highest natural purple sharpness in most trees, I want to say. I didn't pay super attention to all of the trees, but like most of the trees that I personally play, like Gunlands, Sword and Shield, Charge Blade, lands, all that stuff, it's got the highest natural purple sharpness, which is quite a bit, and it's pretty good. It's got good dragon element damage. It kind of does a little bit of a balance. It doesn't have the highest dragon element damage. It doesn't have the highest raw, but it strikes a good balance, so it gives you like options for different builds. Personally, I'm going to be using this for my Sword and Shield elemental build. I know that like the Dragon Bone has way more dragon element, but I like to strike a balance between raw and dragon because, you know, sometimes you're fighting certain monsters where element really only comes into play after you break their parts, and in those situations you want to have a little bit of higher raw to make up for the fact that your element isn't really pulling its full weight until after you break stuff. But, you know, that is just something for me personally. So again, it is going to be something that is going to be used on certain builds, but not all builds, and I think speedrunners are most likely still going to end up using Acidic Glavenus because you can get purple sharpness with Acidic Glavenus, and then you can, like, you know, use skills to prevent the sharpness loss, and you're still going to be able to do Elementalist, which is something that you can't do with this weapon. So it's not the most meta weapons that you will get in the game, but they are pretty good, and they do bring interesting things to the table that will give some builds a little bit of diversity. Now, I would like to bring up a specific point in regards to the gun lance, because the Stygian Zinogre gun lance brings a new tier of normal shelling. Now, as someone that plays a lot of gun lance, this is pretty big. Here's the thing. I'm super excited in a lot of ways because it kind of really shakes up the meta. It's like, here's a whole new tier of normal shelling. But in another way, I'm like, but it's normal shelling. And normal shelling is particularly hard to use on some of the more challenging monsters simply because it's got really high animation commitment. And, you know, the monsters just move like super fast and they deal tons of damage. And if you're ever caught with your pants down in the middle of a really long animation, you can just get one shot straight up. That's why normal shelling is kind of something that I haven't engaged with all that much after I reached endgame. So it is interesting that the developers brought a new tier of shelling as normal shelling. I think they're testing players, seeing where players will take this normal shelling and see if people actually go for it, or if people still stick to long shelling, which I think is what most Gunlance players are using right now. Long shelling or wide shelling if you feel, you know, if you feel like playing around a little bit, because I also don't think that wide shelling is that great. It's just fun, but it's not particularly great in terms of how much damage you're going to be dealing. So this is going to be a very interesting thing. Unfortunately, I can't test it yet because after I knocked out about 20 Zinogres, I still don't have a Stygian Zinogre Sky Emerald, so I can't really test this gun lance, but I'm going to be following Jinjinx and Tuna like a goddamn hawk, waiting for them to talk about normal shelling level 7, because, again, I do think that normal shelling level 7 is basically going to make all of the normal shelling gun lances that are level 6 obsolete, because that's how much of a difference shelling makes when you are talking about Iceborne. It is going to be massive. And I think we're going to reach a point where basically you're going to get like 3 choices of gun lance in the gun lance tree. But we'll see how that pans out. Either way, I don't want to bore you guys too much with gun lance because I know that a lot of you guys don't really care that much about the gun lance. It's just something that I thought is pretty interesting. It's like one of the most revolutionary weapons that we are getting. At least I think it is. I could be wrong. Anyway, we also fought Tempered Nergigante, which didn't feel particularly more challenging than its regular version. Sure, he's going to hit harder and he's going to be more aggressive whenever he's enraged and all of that. And if you're not paying too much attention, he's going to steamroll you through the dirt. But, you know, if you pay attention to his moves, he should be fairly easy to deal with so long as you are decent with your weapon. So kind of like Stygian, I don't think you're going to need a specific build to fight this guy other than just, look, make sure to bring a Stera Jerky for whenever he happens to hit you with the spikes so that you don't end up like me, where a lot of the times during that fight, I end up like crouching, waiting for my health to regen so that I'm not bleeding anymore because I always forget to bring a Stera Jerky. Yeah, I'm terrible with that stuff. Anyway, what about that new monster though, the adult Xenojiva? Safi Jiva was an amazing encounter. Now, this was very much just a tease. You don't actually get to kill Safi Jiva just yet, but the mechanics that you get to employ on the first 2 stages of the fight is something that I really liked because it reminded me of like raid mechanics that I've seen in other games like World of Warcraft, for instance. One of the mechanics in the very first stage of the fight is that you're supposed to hit him in the leg, which is in the opposite direction from where you want him to go. And that is pretty cool because you can basically hit him in his right leg to get him to like move to the left, and you're supposed to actually move the monster to take advantage of certain things that are happening within the scenario. Now, I haven't played too much around with that because there's not really that many reasons to actually fight him right now, at least from what I can tell. The rewards aren't really worth it because you don't really get the parts to actually craft his armor set or anything like that. I believe his armor set has been data mined though, so I'm kind of steering away from those that information because I don't want to have that stuff spoiled for me. I want to be able to actually experience it firsthand in the game. As a matter of fact, I can't tell you guys how happy I was that the Monster Hunter team just straight up did not reveal this monster. I was super happy about it. I thought that was absolutely the right decision, and I would love to see them do this for every other monster in the game. Just don't tell me what is coming. Just tell me, look, there's a new monster coming here. We're not going to tell you what it is. Go out there and have fun. That, to me, would make me so much happier. But I realize it's not really like a viable marketing strategy to just not reveal the monsters that you're putting in the game. But just being able to be surprised by the reveal of the new monster was really cool. Being able to experience the fight without actually having seen it in video format before was also really cool, and it just made me super happy. On top of it, the music track during this fight is friggin' amazing. The new monster looks amazing. A lot of people were even bringing out Dragon's Dogma saying, it's Grigori, it's awesome. And it was just like a really feel-good moment the first time that you get to fight him. Now, naturally, followed by that feel-good moment, everybody got blue-balled when they realized we can't actually fight this guy. Like, we can do the practice fight, but then he's going to leave and we can't finish the fight. Now, I think that you're going to be able to finish that fight on the festival, which is going to be on the 20th of December. I could be wrong. Some people are theorizing that potentially because of the image they initially released of the monster. Yeah, it had like the stars on the wings and stuff. So you could be getting the final version of that fight like on the Appreciation Festival because it's got all of those cosmic themes around it. But I think that's a little bit too long to blue ball your player base. You're basically like, hey, here's this monster. Now wait almost 2 months before you can fight it. I think that'll be a little bit too much. But either way, we're not going to have to wait too much to find out because supposedly there's going to be a new dev diary tomorrow. I will be live streaming my reactions to it on Twitch, and then I will make a video breaking it down just like I did for the last dev diary that the developers did. And I will bring you guys all of the information in regards to when the fight is going to happen and all of that stuff because I think that is when they're going to be talking about it. But yeah, I'm super excited to see what the rest of that fight looks like. And I'm also very curious to see what the weapons are going to be like for that particular monster. Now, naturally, with all the stuff that we've got, we are also getting a new Augment Level. Now, the new Augment Level is going to require materials from Tempered Nergigante, and it is going to add more slots to your weapon. The number of slots that you get are going to depend on the rarity. I believe that probably Rarity 12 is going to get like 1 slot. I know that Rarity 11 gets like 2. So most likely Rarity 10 gets what? 4? 3? I'm not 100% sure. I didn't check on this stuff. Just know that there's a new Augment Level. And you're going to be able to get more slots, which means you can play around with augmentations a little bit more. Now, on top of that, the Randy Pitchbone weapons, or the weapons that have, they're like bits on sticks, the bone weapons and the iron weapons that just have little bits of the monster stuck on them, the ones that have the customized augmentation. You're also going to be getting a new custom augment level for those weapons, and you're going to get 3 options from what I've seen. Option number 1 is going to be plus 5 attack. Option number 2 is going to be plus 3% affinity. And option number 3 is going to be more sharpness. Now, more sharpness is not going to work like handicraft. It is going to add more sharpness on to the opposite direction. So if handicraft goes to the right, this one adds more sharpness to the left. So it basically adds more hits of whatever the sharpness is that you have. So if your weapon has blue sharpness, you're going to get more blue sharpness. If your weapon would upgrade into white sharpness, it's not going to give you that white sharpness. It's just going to give you more blue sharpness. Once you actually get into the game and you see what the augment looks like, you'll understand. It basically moves all of your other sharpnesses further to the left. So like you get less red sharpness, less yellow sharpness, less green sharpness, and you just get more of whatever sharpness your weapon usually has, which is a good thing. I'm going to be using that on my gun lances for sure. So on top of all of those things that I just talked about, we also got the new area, which is the Tundra in the Guiding Lands. And I would like to remind you guys, as you are leveling the Tundra in the Guiding Lands, do not forget to collect ore and bones, because you're going to be needing that for all of your augmentation needs. And if you guys are wondering what is the fastest way to level the new area in the Guiding Lands, for starters, depending on the monsters that show up in there, like the most efficient monsters in my opinion are going to be Barioths, Shrieking Legianas, and Viper Tobikadachis. But personally, I don't like fighting Viper Tobikadachis because there's too much status ailments to deal with, and he's really fast, and he's a small target, and he's annoying. Barioth is also a little bit on the annoying side, so I tend to go after the Shrieking Legianas, but to each their own. Now, naturally, when you start your Guiding Lands expedition, you're probably not going to have Barioths and Shrieking Legianas because those weren't available previously. So your next best thing is going to be regular Legianas, which you probably will have from doing stuff in the Coral Highlands. So just summon those Legianas in the Tundra, and they're going to give you decent gains of level. And then as you start getting Shrieking Legianas and Barioths and Viper Tobis, those are going to be the things that you're going to be wanting to hunt in those settings. Do remember that monsters that go all over the place, so stuff like Fulgor Anjanath and Nergigante and Velkhana, they're not going to give you as much level. So if you need their materials, by all means, summon them in the Tundra and kill them. But if you're trying to level it up, those monsters are going to slow you down. So keep those things in mind. Now, when you get your Tundra to level 7, your Stygians and Ogres become tempered, and you will definitely want to kill tempered Stygians and Ogres on your level 7 Tundra, because that is going to drop the material that you actually need for the final upgrade of the Stygians and Ogre weapons. So if if you've killed a bunch of Stygians and Ogres and you still can't craft the final version of the weapon, and it's everything in exclamation marks, not exclamation, question marks, it's everything in question marks, it's because you still don't have the material from the tempered version of Stygians and Ogre in the Guiding Lands, and that is what you want to get to unlock that final upgrade. Also, your Nergigantes, when you get the Tundra to level 7, they will spawn as tempered, and there's also a chance for them to spawn as tempered in other areas of the Guiding Lands, and you will want to kill tempered Nergigantes in the Guiding Lands because he is the one who gives you the materials to get the next augmentation level on your weapons. Anyway, how are you guys enjoying the new content update? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit it up with a like. If you guys are new to the channel, subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, the usual stuff. If you guys didn't enjoy the video, dislike, because feedback is extremely important. Stay strong, and may your shields never break.